Welcome to Radio 5G. It is August 21st, 2019. My name is Nancy Hopkins. With me a little bit later will be Michael Henry Dunn. What we are going to do right now is to give you a tape, or play a tape for you. It is part of the 5G Crisis Summit, and they've given three different people with, initial videos, hour-long videos, so that you get a taste for what kind of presentation they're going to make. And based on this first one, which is called 5G, The Agenda for Total Control, from Patrick Wood, it's going to be a very, very good series. So we highly recommend that you go to the5gsummit.com. The5gsummit.com. We'll have links and everything. And sign up for it, okay? It's going to be an ongoing series of audio videos and also transcripts. So it's very, very valuable information, and my understanding is as they grow in this, they're going to, present different ways that you can actually become an activist in this new strange world we're living in, or they're trying to make us living in. You're going to love this. I mean, this guy is very, very good, Mr. Wood. So without any further ado, I'm going to play it. It is an hour. At the end of the hour, Michael and I will be back. Here we go.
With us today on the summit is Patrick Wood. Patrick, thanks so much for joining us.
Charlie, welcome, Josh. Good to be here.
Patrick is a leading and critical expert on sustainable development, green economy, UN Agenda 21, 2030 Agenda, and historic technocracy. That basically means he's one of the best researchers out there that in the past decades has really helped to delve into the conversation around these topics and around how the dots connect behind the scenes. He's the author of Technocracy Rising and co-author of Trilaterals Over Washington, Volumes 1 and 2, with the late Anthony C. Sutton. Wood remains a leading expert on the elitist Trilateral Commission, their policies and achievements in creating their self-proclaimed new international economic order, which is the essence of sustainable development on a global scale. So we're going to be diving into it today. We're going to be kind of, separating out the truth from the lies and really distilling some dot connecting. We're going to get into solutions. We're going to get into really understanding the bigger picture here in terms of technocracy. Technocracy is a word that's, you're really helping, Patrick, to bring forward into our lexicon to understand how technology is intentionally being used to be the new control mechanism in our society. So let's dive right in. Tell us about your perspective. What is 5G? What is the Internet of Things? And how do they intersect? What's the purpose here?
Right, exactly. Just to lay a little bit of background, technocracy originally was conceived at Columbia University in 1932. They got kicked out. The whole group got kicked out of Columbia for a couple of reasons, but they started a commercial operation called Technocracy Incorporated, where they had membership. People paid dues. They had membership card, and it was very popular in America. They had up to 600,000 card-carrying members at one time. It was a pretty big deal. Pretty much fizzled out in the late 1930s, but it was resuscitated in the late 1960s, early 1970s, with the foundation of the Trilateral Commission, 1973 in particular, with David Rockefeller and Zbigniew Brzezinski. Brzezinski had written a book while he was at Columbia University, by the way, called Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era. That's what started the modern iteration of technocracy again. We could call it neo-technocracy. I just choose not to because nobody knows what technocracy is anyway, so I don't have to really make that distinction. But the Trilateral Commission fed the doctrine of technocracy to the United Nations in 1992 under the auspices of sustainable development. We hear this everywhere today. Sustainable this, sustainable that, sustainable development. It's a resource-based economic system that depends on allocation of resources, not allocation by a price-based economic system, which we understand today, but direct allocation of resources by the quote-unquote the managers of those resources. And now the UN has kind of got this idea of setting up a global common trust where resources will be transferred to them. They will manage the allocation and the licensing and so on of resources, and you and I will basically be excluded. The program completely wipes out private property, not allowed. The United Nations has sworn that they are going to uproot capitalism and free enterprise altogether for the sake of replacing it with sustainable development. All of this is baseline stuff, and I cover all that in my books. I'm not going to go into it a lot more, but this is kind of the background. In the original Bible, if you will, of technocracy, it was called the Technocracy Study Course, written by M. King Hubbard mostly. That also was the guy that started peak oil theory, by the way, in 1954. We've heard a lot about that too, but Hubbard was a co-founder of the Technocracy Incorporated organization. And in that, they described the criteria that were necessary for technocracy to take root. In that criteria, energy management was number one. They wanted to track every single erg of power that was used within the economic system. Secondly, they wanted to surveil and monitor everything in society, all consumption, all production, where people were, what they were doing, and so on. They didn't have the technology back then, but we do today. And I believe they saw the day when technology was coming, if for no other reason that when they were at Columbia, they were housed together in the same area with the early iteration of IBM, which was then making the first Hollerith computer, the tabulator. It was later used in Germany and Europe and so on for tracking statistics and things like concentration camps and ugly stuff like that. Well, anyway, they were rubbing shoulders with visionaries, and they considered themselves to be visionaries anyway because they were with Columbia University after all. So that is the background. Technology now has matured greatly since 1973. We have things today that were barely even conceived of back then. As computers have advanced, as software technology has advanced, for instance, we now have artificial intelligence. This was not really a discipline back in 1973 at all. We now have the ability to transmit data in ways that we never conceived of back in 1973 using wireless technology. This new body, this recent body of technology now is being used to accomplish the original goals of technocracy. That's my point in this whole thing. The technology has advanced. Some people would say, well, it's just people inventing things after all. Well, that's probably true in a sense. But as soon as it's invented, the technology gets hijacked by this group of technocrats, if you will, turned around, weaponized, and used back against the people that it seeks to control. That's where we are today. We'll talk about 5G. I'll throw this out. Mm-hmm. 5G is not about cell phones. It's being sold that way. Your cell phone is going to be so much faster. You can get the latest and greatest new iPhone. You can pay whatever, probably by the time it comes out, you're going to pay $2,000 for a smartphone that will do 5G, and you can get your movies downloaded in 3 seconds instead of 3 minutes. I say, well, what a benefit. It's not about cell phone speed up. I've listened to the speeches of the CEOs of Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, and consistently you can see them salivating, not over voice communications or human communication on cell phones, but they're salivating over the Internet of Things. And this is what they're talking incessantly about, that 5G is going to light up the Internet of Things that will allow all of the data collection, all of the devices out there that could be connected to the Internet, is going to draw all that data back in real time. And when I say real time, that's hard for most people to understand what that means. The latest wireless technology, 4G, is fast, no doubt. But 5G takes it to a completely different level. Not only are the data transmission speeds higher, much higher, but the other factor in Internet communications is called latency. Latency has to do with how long it takes that first little ping back and forth to say, I'm ready to send, and the other one says, I'm ready to receive. And so they have to go back and forth all the time, determining, are you ready to receive it or ready to send it? Now, this sounds like a minuscule thing. Typically, in a home situation where you have a Wi-Fi router, your latency time can be something like 20 to 30 milliseconds. You say, whoa, that's really fast. And it is. But it's not real time. 5G technology has gotten the latency period down to 1 millisecond or less. This is incredible. This is absolutely revolutionary. What this means is the sensors embedded in a city will be able to send data in real time back to the central computer, where artificial intelligence will be waiting to analyze it, to model it, to extract all of the useful information out of it. This is what the big carriers are salivating over. They want that data. We used to say in the 70s, Josh, follow the money, follow the power. That's still true to some extent. Well, of course it is. Money always seems to come into it somewhere. Mm-hmm. But today, as far as technocracy is concerned, here's how you watch this. Follow the data, follow the power. Go where the data is. Look for the data flow. Look for who's receiving, not first collecting, and then look who's receiving the data and what are they doing to it. All of the people in the data world today are claiming that data is the new oil of the 21st century. And they're absolutely right. The money and the value today, the income stream, is in the data that these technocrats are able to extract from society. So when you talk about smart city, implementing all these sensors around, whether they be light poles with microphones and cameras and the 5G transmitters, whether it be sensors in elevators and buildings and thermostats and smart meters on the sides of homes and businesses and smart meters for the water and the gas, all the kind of stuff. Autonomous vehicles, by the way, driving around in the city and so on, all those things are going to be connected via the Internet of Things. By the time they're done implementing 100% smart city technology in one given area, a computer with sufficient resources will be able to literally to model the city in real time and to rotate it, look into it in different areas they want to look at. This has never been possible.
What are some of the applications of that? And before you answer that, I'll just maybe say that I have a good friend who says, has coined this saying, "We scare because we care." And so we're gonna go into a little bit of these, might potentially scary areas to really look at like what this technology is and or could be used for, so that we can deal with this, with what is actually happening, bring the conversation forward, and intentionally, change course collectively. Like that's what we're talking about here, right? We're talking about like having a period of time in which we're coming to terms with this reality. We're investigating solutions, and we're getting intentional about it. But let's just go into this, Patrick. Like what are some of your deepest concerns? What are you seeing in terms of application here and in the future with this technology?
This whole body of truth we're talking about here has to do with social control. That's what technocracy was about in the first place. That's what sustainable development is about today with Agenda 21 and 2030 Agenda and the New Urban Agenda and so on from the United Nations. It's about social control. This is what the Green New Deal is all about, that AOC has introduced into our country with a firestorm, I might add. Everybody's talking about it now. This is about social control, getting you to do what they want you to do. It takes away private choice. It takes away citizen choice. It takes away citizen concerns completely and says, essentially, this is such an ego trip. We know what's best for you. You should trust us to make all your decisions for you. Why? Your purchasing decisions, your medical decisions, your travel decisions, your consumption decisions, how many children you have decisions, everything under the sun is envisioned right now, is on the table for them to exercise social control over you and I. This is not just by mistake or unintended. This is the way it was from the beginning. Now we're really feeling the bite, Josh, is the problem. Look at China. China has implemented this social credit scoring system over there that's affected every person in their country. All 1.4 billion people have been enrolled into the social credit system with their pictures, with biometric data, with all of the data, everything that happens, they know, the government does. They're applying artificial intelligence now to rank and rate and sort all of the people in the country. The outliers that are troublemakers, like you and me, the outliers are simply dropped out of the system. They're excluded. There's 13 million people right now in China on the blacklist that have been relegated to be second-class citizens. They can't travel the way other people do. They can't go to the same schools that other people want to go to. They can't live in the same areas that other people want to live in. They can't buy the same stuff that other people want to buy. This is so dystopian. It's beyond dystopia. This is what's coming to America because this is the heartbeat of technocracy. This is the heartbeat of social control.
Wow. And I remember you writing on things like pre-crime, right? That movie Minority Report that probably a lot of people are familiar with. Do you want to touch on that and how, and any other specific ways that you've been reporting on your website, Technocracy News, other specific ways that this technology is sought to be implemented?
Well, you have it. Pre-crime is a pretty good example. You have in our country today, in America today, a rollout of surveillance technology that's very similar, if not identical, to what's being used in China. Although American companies now have the technology and they're selling it to police departments across America. Mm-hmm. Exactly the same concept and functionality of the software used in China to be able to identify people walking down a street using a public camera, tracking people by name, put a little box or whatever balloon over their head saying, there goes Josh Joe Soul. He's going down to, get coffee at his favorite coffee place or whatever. This technology in America is being sold to police departments across the country right now by aggressive pinstripe suit type, not IBM salesmen, but that's kind of the picture you have when you have professional salespeople. They're going out to police departments to market this surveillance software. Police departments are gobbling it up at incredible rates. And a lot of people say this isn't legal or it isn't right or whatever, that we don't want that here. But police departments come to find out, Josh, there is no federal regulation, not one single federal regulation or law that prevents a local police department from implementing this ubiquitous type of surveillance software and implementing any kind of of AI software for pre-crime analysis that they can get their hands on. It's just a matter of money. Now, police departments don't have a lot of money, so as the price came down on this software and hardware combinations, more and more police departments said, we can afford that. Why, we can get rid of maybe a half a dozen patrolmen we don't need anymore, and we'll use their salary to pay for it. That's what they've done. So now this is sweeping America. Americans individually yet have not caught up mentally with what's going on in police enforcement across our country. But when they use this pre-crime technique to try and predict where crime is going to happen, when it's going to happen, and by who it's going to be perpetrated, this goes into such dangerous ground, because to a technocrat mind, it's perfectly acceptable to be 90% accurate. If they can get something that's 90% accurate, why, they're thrilled. It's wonderful. We have pre-crime analysis. We can go out now and do all this stuff. But here's what they just ignore. What about the 10%? Mm-hmm. What about the 10% that get busted for something that had nothing to do with?
Yeah.
This is such dangerous, utopian-like thinking that Americans haven't yet got their mind around. 90% isn't good enough. That's not the way America ever worked. Our legal system, our justice, the rule of law. Okay, it's not perfect because maybe people aren't perfect sometimes, but the rule of law applied the same law to everybody uniformly. Not so with pre-crime analysis software or any other thing like that works on artificial intelligence. It's not going to apply it equally. It's been proven to have biases. In other words, the bias of the programmer has been seen now to be reflected in the software. And 90% accuracy leaves the other 10% out in the cold to get busted for any cockeyed thing that somebody comes up with. And even if they are proven not guilty in the end, they've ruined their life in the meantime by the mere accusation that they did something.
Yeah, thank you so much for painting that picture, because this is obviously scary to move from the rule of law to an AI system making assumptions that affect people's rights. And because that's what we're talking about here. It's technocracy. It's the potential for chaos. It's the potential for, complete and utter dependence on the system and loss of individual rights and common order. So thank you for that. That's obviously it's disturbing. So Patrick, you've also been doing work on exposing smart region initiatives, smart cities and smart region initiatives. Tell us about that.
Well, okay. First, we have the technology. We've talked a little bit about some of the things that go into smart city. We've missed a lot of stuff too, though. It's a very complex area, and it's a big area.
Yeah.
But we've kind of laid the groundwork. There is some really disturbing technology out there that these technocrats are trying to impose upon cities to implement the data pump, to get data out of the cities. The money is in the data, remember. So when you hear these large companies like the AT&Ts of the world talking about getting this smart city technology out to entire cities, they're talking about creating a huge data pump within that city. Now, there's a problem in cities. That problem not to us. We are the city. The problem to them is that there's those pesky city councils out there that they just continue to ask questions, and they continue to want to know, well, how is this going to really protect our citizens? And they're our representatives, right? We elect them. We may not like some of them. I don't like all of mine, but still, they're on the front line to protect the people in the city and do things for the city the way the city wants them to be done, the people.
Yeah.
Technocrats hate, this entire smart city crowd hates city councils because there's so many of them. There's thousands and thousands of cities across the country that are kind of woke, if you will, now. They're watching for this kind of stuff. So instead of trying to go directly to the cities to negotiate for smart city technology, implementation. Mm-hmm. In Phoenix, Arizona, of all places, there's a pilot program going on right today that every other community in the country is watching like a hawk, and it's called Smart Region Initiative. How it started here, Arizona State University, which bills themselves as being the most sustainable university in the country, they actually offer up to a PhD degree in sustainable development. Mm-hmm. So they're really up on it. They have risen up, gotten a hold of 3 other NGOs in the area. One is a Chamber of Commerce-like organization. Another is just a new startup, a data development management company. And they've all created this consortium together called the Smart Region Initiative. This is very similar similar to the Council of Government concept that's already implemented across the country. It's a form of regional government, patently unconstitutional, by the way, but it's out there. We have locally a councils of governments called the Maricopa Association of Governments. It also is concerned with 22 cities and 4.2 million people, something like that. And the Smart Region Initiative is working hand in hand with the Maricopa Association of Governments to develop smart city technology to be implemented across the region. Okay?
Without the consent or permission or approval of any city government. That's the basis of this FCC law that basically is a power grab, right? I mean, they don't want to have to ask permission anywhere.
You're absolutely right. So the cities have contributed no input to this group whatsoever. There's no elected officials belongs to this particular group. In the case of the Maricopa Association of Governments, every city is supposed to contribute one council person to this larger regional council. But that does not give representation to the people in the cities. That's a model of the European Union, for Pete's sake, where you give, where each country gets to send 1 or 2 representatives to the EU Congress to get 2 minutes to say something once a year, but complain. Yeah. So this form of regional governance is off the wall. But in the case of smart city technology, this little consortium, this little cozy consortium of academia, ASU, along with these other nonprofit groups who have all kinds of different motives for being there in the first place, they have simply stood up and said, we know what's best for this region. And they don't know anything about this region other than most of them may live here. They don't know the 4.2 million people in this region. And this whole thing, the whole program, Josh, is absolutely bogus as far as I'm concerned. It should be scrubbed off the face of the map. However, because the cities and the Maricopa Association of Governments are involved in this, all of a sudden they have this newfound authority in the eyes of people that live here. Mm-hmm. Oh, you mean the Smart Region Initiative says we need to do it this way, huh? Yep, that's what they said. Whoa, I guess we better do it that way then. They're not even questioning these decisions that come down. In the meantime, this is a absolute gold mine for the AT&Ts, the T-Mobiles, and so on of the world, the Verizons that are coming in, setting up this data pump, because now they can get uniform deployment of technology across the entire region. And imagine how much more valuable that is to them than having 22 individual systems having to be negotiated, implemented, et cetera, around. Now they get everything in one fell swoop. They get it faster because it's going to be done all at once across the entire region. And meantime, the region here in our area, I can tell you, knows nothing about this whatsoever. They're completely oblivious. There's been no publicity, maybe just a couple of press releases sent out, but no publicity whatsoever. And even worse, people from all over our country are looking at Phoenix as an example, waiting, saying to themselves, if they do it, man, we're on the bandwagon. We're right behind them. We're going to do it too. There's even people in Europe that watching the Phoenix situation right now. They want to do the same thing, set up these smart region initiatives where they can just blanket the whole technology, the whole suite of things across an entire region. And in our case in Phoenix, they're going to catch 22 cities and 4.2 million people. Bang, slam dunk.
Wow. So with smart meters, that has gone forward in the name of climate action. With 5G, that is being pushed forward in the name of convenience, or keeping up with the progress of technology, or competition with China. And it's like a new Cold War, right? That's been kind of propped up, perhaps, between U.S. and China. Isn't that what Trump is saying? Why he wants 5G, 6G, and any kind of G?
Well, yeah, any kind of G. President Trump has said that the United States must win the 5G war. Whenever you have something complex like this, the way to get it done quickly is to turn it into a race. I've seen this so many times. In fact, I used to do this with my two young sons when they were young. All you had to do was suggest, let's have a race, let's run or whatever. Oh yeah, well, they want to compete against each other. That was guaranteed to burn off some energy, if nothing else. Mm-hmm. Anytime, like President Trump says, we have a race with China, we have to beat China. Everybody all of a sudden, that's a challenge. That's a challenge. Oh, you darn right we need to beat China. Why? Those people over there are doing all kinds of things to their citizens, whatever. We need to beat them to the punch and do it even worse. I say this jokingly, do it even worse to our people. But this is the mentality, I believe, of the Trump administration saying we need to beat China in this race. They're actually speeding up the implementation of 5G in our country. We've seen them work through the FCC, which you just alluded to take away the authority of cities to charge and do independent negotiations with carriers. And so now there's a federal mandate from the top down to get this 5G stuff implemented. And it goes even beyond that, because all of the smart city things we're talking about, Josh, are part of a larger construct called infrastructure. Infrastructure, we think of it as there's a pothole in front of my house. I'd like to get it fixed. Or there's a bridge that is unsafe down the road. I'd like to see that fixed. That's not infrastructure to the technocrat mind. Infrastructure is all of the electronic stuff that's being implemented across the country to connect people and cities together and the data centers together to suck the data. This is infrastructure. Just recently, President Trump emerged from a meeting with Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Nancy Pelosi, having concluded a deal for infrastructure spending in America. Schumer came out of the meeting. He's an arch enemy of Trump. He hates Trump's guts, and I think probably vice versa. He came out of the meeting saying, we had a great meeting with the president. Why? He even suggested more money than we suggested for infrastructure, and he upped the ante. And so President Trump put on the table for infrastructure spending $2 trillion.
Wow.
Huge. Where will this $200 million go? Are they talking about bridges? Are they talking about potholes? Are they talking about repaving the freeways? No, they're not. They're talking about the infrastructure that we're talking about here to blanket our country with smart city technology and everything that goes to shore it up for the largest social engineering project in the history of the world.
Wow. And I just want to confirm, is it 2 trillion or 200 million?
2 trillion.
2 trillion, right. Two vastly different numbers. I just want to clarify that. So, wow. So, this, I just want to kind of put this in context. I'm kind of struggling to do so right now, other than to say that this is the biggest thing that's happening. What Patrick is talking about is 5G. We need to understand that. It's not just a one-dimensional thing, conversation. So this is going to be something that we, encourage you, do your own research on and get educated about this aspect, this dot connecting aspect of 5G, because this, I think Patrick perhaps could help people really understand the why, really understand things in a big picture, and really be able to then reach an even larger amount of people with this information. So it's not just about the health. That is a serious concern that this is going forward with no safety studies. Would you agree?
I would agree.
But there's this huge other conversation. So yeah, please continue. Help us to contextualize this and lead us to, eventually we want to get to what specifically are our best steps to take.
All right. Let me just add on top of this the philosophical idea, which is prevalent with this whole technocrat crowd going back to the 30s, going through the United Nations. We see this everywhere. When we talk about resources, we're thinking about timber, lumber, oil, food coming off the land, things getting mined out of the earth, resources. We think of water as a resource. To the technocrat mind, resources also include you and me. All humans are simply resources on the table with all these other resources that need to be worked and managed in concert with each other to save the planet, so to speak. I say save the planet figuratively. That's what they say. They're not saving the planet, trust me. Mm-hmm. But humans are reduced to being simply another resource on the face of the earth, no different than the cattle or the sheep or the goats or anything else, even trees in the forest and farmland growing cauliflower out, on the farm. We're just resources to be managed. We're no better in their mind. We're no better than a cow or a sheep. And so we're just there to be managed. Now, when Americans or when people concerned about the health effects of 5G get all worked up and they go to wherever they go to the protest, when they're facing a technocrat, in the technocrat's mind, why are you talking to me? Why should I care? You have to break a few eggs to make an omelet. So what's the problem here? You're just a resource. Don't you understand? You're just a resource. The health issue, we don't care about the health issues because you know what? If you got 50,000 cattle in a feedlot, you obviously don't want to lose the whole herd. That would be dumb. But you know what? Cattle die in a feedlot for all kinds of reasons. They pull up a tractor, they put them in the bucket, and they haul them off. They take them to the sausage grinder or something. I don't know. Ooh. That brings up another bad thought about an old movie called Soylent Green. I didn't mean it, folks. But you see, when you reduce humanity to be just another animal, the mindset that comes out of that, Josh, is dangerous and it's anti-human. In my opinion, it's flat out anti-human. So all of the health concerns, if you're addressing technocrats, will fall on deaf ears. They won't have anything to say to you because they're going to be looking at you and saying, you guys are really crazy to be talking about this to us because, there's just nothing to be concerned about here. Who are you anyway? You're just an animal like all the other animals.
Let's talk about this sort of anti-human type mentality. I mean, perhaps it can be in the microcosm. It can be, that part that we struggle within. It could be the dissociative mind or the ego or whatever, right? But on the larger scale, it seems to be that yes, there is like this, whatever force or source it's coming from, it is a collective unconsciousness that seems to be, have a death wish, let's say, or have a death wish and then project that onto other people in the context of control. So, this is something that, again, another aspect of this I came across perhaps when reading your work, about the Club of Rome, in which they concluded, basically they created the context for this battle. What's the takeaway from, what did the Club of Rome do or say, and what's the takeaway?
First, I'll say there was great overlap between the Club of Rome and the Trilateral Commission, and we wrote about that in our book, Trilaterals Over Washington, back in the 70s. What the Club of Rome did is they threw up a kind of an Al Gore-esque panic attack, sky is falling, by saying that, we have a radical shortage of resources in the world. And if we don't allocate those resources more wisely, that we're all going to die. And, humanity is going to come to a screeching halt. Well, their book, their work called Limits to Power was widely circulated amongst the global elite, especially. I doubt many people, even in this audience that we're addressing right now, probably have ever heard of that book before, but it had a huge impact on the global elite. And so the Club of Rome prescribed essentially everything that the United Nations is doing today with resource management, resource-based economic system. Control all the resources. Myself and Sutton said this, by the way, even though we didn't understand technocracy back in the early days, as I do now. Mm-hmm. We said that the goal of the global elite was to get their hands on the resources directly, not just on the money that comes out of them, generated from them, but get their hands on the resources directly. This makes sense in a historical sense. This makes very good sense to them, not to me, but it does to them, because there comes a time when money runs out of usefulness. There comes a time when money becomes worthless by definition because they're chipping away at it a little bit more every year. Since 1913, the dollar's lost like 99% of its value. There's going to come a time when it's 100% and money will mean nothing. We're almost to that point right now, by the way. But when money becomes worthless, and I think they saw this even back in 73, when money becomes worthless, what do you do for an encore? Well, if you control and own the resources, it doesn't matter what type of accounting system you put on top of it. If you got the resources and everybody else wants them, just wait for it to sort itself out, and you're going to own everything again. You got the resources in your pocket. This is why the United Nations has been busy gobbling up heritage zones and stuff around the world. This is why in our country, in America now, the U.S. government owns, I think, 36% of the landmass of our nation. It's owned by the government. And people go, what? Our government owns that much property? Yes, they do. Are they allowed to? Well, the Constitution doesn't say they can, but they just went and did it. And that's land that you and I can't use for legitimate economic purposes. And the United Nations is doing this all around the world. So the global elite now are in a position to, I think, one day let the financial system go altogether. It won't matter to them anymore because they will have the actual resources behind everything to recreate themselves in any way they want to recreate themselves when the time comes.
Well, tell us about, some of your work has gotten into opportunity zones. What is that?
Boy, this is new. And I get shocked. People say, how could you get shocked? I get shocked at stuff I run across that I never saw coming. And I think my ears to the ground on a lot of stuff. Recently, I discovered this whole opportunity zone concept. This was created by an act of Congress in December 2017, signed into law by President Trump. And it was called, I'll tell you what it was called. It was called the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. In that act was a provision to create opportunity zones. These are supposed to be low-income designations within states that will achieve certain tax advantages if people invest into these opportunity zones. They're self-certifying zones. The governors of every state were allowed to define, well, what do you want in your state to be an opportunity zone? So they started drawing the maps, whatever, in every state. The president then signed an executive order, and 1 year later, in December of 2018, that created a national, administrative council, including some cabinet members, that will shepherd the Opportunity Zone initiative across America. So it's actually been formalized within the government now as a big thing. Today, Josh, there are 8,700 opportunity zones created across America. And they're all focused on investing money into these areas. Now, here's the thing about this. if you have an asset that has a very, very low tax base, that's, in other words, you bought it maybe for a penny, and now it's worth $100. Mm-hmm. If you sell that asset, you're going to pay through the nose capital gains taxes. Big investors hate that because it just drives their income, and they pay the highest possible income tax rate on it. And so they want to avoid capital gains taxes anywhere they can. Well, this opportunity zone setup allows for somebody to sell assets like that, reinvest the money into the opportunity zone, and defer their capital gains taxes for at least 6 years. Now, that's huge. And what we've seen in practice so far is that the biggest opportunity here is for public-private partnerships to be created where people can pool their money together in these opportunity zones, invest the money into the city on anything they want, including light poles or sensors or street sensors or anything else, invest the money in there, and they can reap whatever benefits they can get out of it. And they defer their taxes for a long time. Now, what's happened in practice so far is that I found some opportunity zones early on that said, this is our opportunity to implement smart city technology in that area, in that low-income area. Well, low-income areas have no ability really to fight anything like this because they're low income. They don't have the resources. They don't have the political infrastructure probably, and they simply just don't have the money. Maybe they don't have the education. So it's easy to get this implemented. So here's the big question. Where did this legislation in 2017 come from? Who backed it? And what was it all about? The founder of this organization called the Economic Innovation Group, that was kind of the primary NGO behind this legislation. The founder and executive chairman is Sean Parker. Now, for those who don't recognize Sean Parker's name, I'll just read one line from his bio. He was a co-founder of Napster at age 19 and Plaxo at 21. In 2004, he joined with Mark Zuckerberg to develop the online social network Facebook. Has anybody ever heard of Facebook?
Wow.
And served as Facebook's founding president. And the bio goes on. But you get the point. Here is a guy who is Mr. Data himself, right?
Yeah.
Wow. And he's pushing this. Now, I can tell you what, this is all about the data. Remember I said follow the data, follow the power? This is a data grab of epic proportions. We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. Before we get into actions, kind of moving towards wrapping up here, Patrick, I wanted just to touch into this. So 5G linked with Internet of Things, linked with AI, linked with transhumanism. What's your take on that?
Well, it is, and I've suggested this quite a bit. Both transhumanism and technocracy.
First, let's define it. What is transhumanism?
Well, transhumanism is the religious proposition that through the use of advanced technology that man can escape the human condition. In layman's terms, that means can become immortal. They want to escape death. That's the bottom line. This philosophy and the father of transhumanism and the father of technocracy are the same person. It just so happens it's the same person. You can check the books on it. If anybody doesn't believe that, you can. His name is Henri de Saint-Simon. He was a French philosopher that lived around 1800. He wrote extensively on both topics, and he is now considered to be the father of both. He developed the religious concept of scientism, that science was the solution to man's everything. Got a problem? Scientists can come in and save the day because they're better than everyone else. They're smarter and they can predict the future. Well, we're not going to go into scientism right now, but there's a lot been written about scientism. C.S. Lewis, by the way, wrote a number of papers on against scientism. fighting it, debunking it, if you will. Mm-hmm. Transhumanism is based on the concept of scientism. We can use the technology to escape death. That's the ultimate problem. And
merging man and machine.
That's right. And I describe it like this. Technocracy is to the formation of society as transhumanism is to the people who will inhabit society. That makes sense. Okay, so a technocratic society would be most perfectly filled by transhumans. The transhuman philosophy believes today that by using this advanced technology, they will create humanity 2.0. They believe through genetic modification especially that they can hijack, literally, the forces of evolution. Okay, now evolution is not a Christian biblical concept, of course, but to those who come from an evolution frame of mind in the first place, where they believe everything was just incidental and, just happened to happen, they believe now that through science, they can take over the process of evolution and direct future evolution themselves. This is really twisted, I hate to tell you. It really is just, wow, these people are out on a limb. They think that they're going to create humanity 2.0. Now, humanity 2.0 would be the perfect type of humanity to live within a purely technocratic society.
So when you say they, like the elite, you're talking about the Trilateral Commission, the Club of Rome, the Bilderberg Group, right?
And anybody that adopts that philosophy, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's there's millions of people outside of those elite groups that you could look at and call, see them involved in scientism. You could call them a technocrat. You could call them a transhuman. They may not have any idea what the global elite is doing, but the philosophy has permeated, the religion of it has permeated people's thinking process. And it is a religion. Scientism is a religion.
Well, isn't it just materialism? It's what can happen, the depths of depravity to which the human mind can go when it ceases to see the essence, of value, or the spark of divinity or the soul in other human beings. Right?
Science becomes a god. Bottom line, to a scientismist, science is the god. Science can do no wrong. Science is settled. Science is indisputable. Do what science says. You can't. Don't be a denier, or you'll be punished. It's a religious proposition all the way down the line. But science is set up as some kind of an immutable God that can provide answers for everything man wants to know. All truth man wants to know, it's found in science. Just listen to science. Don't listen to God. Don't listen to ethics or moral discussion or whatever. Just listen to science.
Right. Wow. Well, you've given us a ton to think about today, Patrick, and thank you for helping to bring light to all of these topics. And really just to explain the why, the bigger picture, the dot connecting around 5G. I really appreciate that on behalf of the audience. Just as we wrap up here, what can you tell us in terms of solutions? Where, from your perspective, where do you see it most effective for the people to put their energy if we want a positive future outcome here?
Absolutely. At this point, the only possible line of defense that we can put in place is at the local level, the city and county level. And I encourage people to get active locally, to get to know their city council people, to run for city council, to run for all kinds of the various offices around their city and in their county. Get on any kind of board you can get on, and get your seat at the table. Somebody, a liberal, actually suggested one time to a friend of mine, if you don't have a seat at the table, you are what's for dinner. Don't do that anymore. You can get involved in your local civic matters and make a huge difference. Case in point, of all places, San Francisco. San Francisco, the bastion of liberalness and progressiveness in America. There's no city I know, and I was born there, I should know. There's no city in America that's more progressive and liberal and off the wall than San Francisco. Their city council just banned facial recognition technology from the city.
Excellent.
They banned it. Okay, don't tell me that the cities don't have power. They do. But if the citizens don't go and request the local city magistrates and the council members to take a stand on their behalf on these issues, they won't do it. You have to go and get involved. That's one reason, by the way, that I created Citizens for Free Speech last year, in turn, which created localactivist.org as a social networking platform just for local activists to go after issues like this. And people are welcome to go there if they want to, localactivist.org, and sign up. And believe me, if you come in and you're disingenuous and you're a troll or you've got some other idea that you're going to crack the safe, we'll throw you out faster than a country heartbeat. This is a private network for people like us that are really desiring to get in and set our country back straight again on a local basis. And you can check it out, citizensforfreespeech.org and localactivist.org.
Excellent. Patrick, thank you so much. I absolutely, to the highest level, recommend that people check out your book, Technocracy Rising, and also your previous work, which was Trilaterals Over Washington. And you just bring such a grounded, research-based depth without the conspiracy theory and help us to really understand. And there it is.
And my latest book, by the way, Technocracy, The Hard Road to World Order. I'm not sure you've seen this one yet.
I haven't seen that one. Thank you for letting us know about that.
Absolutely. This is the more current iteration of how kind of like what we've been talking about here, using current examples to demonstrate these initiatives and stuff on how they're implementing technocracy. So it's worthwhile. I call it connecting the dots.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just to everyone watching out there, I just want to, just from my heart, you heard Patrick's message just right now about how important it is to educate and communicate with your local officials right now. Not only your local officials, but local community members and people both online and offline. So I just wanted, this is off the cuff, I just wanted to, I'm just trying to figure out from a business standpoint if this is even possible. But I'd want to somehow encourage you to share this talk and this series with your local governments. That's one of the reasons why we're putting on the summit. So please, we're going to make it more clear how you can do that. But if you do purchase this series at the end of the free period, you have my permission to take that video and put it on a zip drive or, upload it privately and send a link to your local elected officials. Okay. This is really important that we understand that this is the type of research right here being done by Patrick and others on the summit that can change minds and perspectives of those in positions of power and gatekeepers in local government. So while we don't have everything defined, we do know that, our intention is to get this out to as many people as possible. And I, from my heart, want to support that as being as easy as possible. So Patrick, thank you so much for your time today. This has been an incredible conversation, and we look forward to keep in touch with you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Josh. I really appreciate it.
All right. Welcome back, everyone. This is Michael Henry Dunn at Radio 5G with my co-host, Nancy Hopkins. And we've just been listening to a pretty amazing hour-long presentation from the 5G Crisis Summit, hosted by Josh Del Sol. And Nancy, could you mention the name of his guest again? They didn't go over it too often. I can pull it up here in a second. But
Dr. Wood. Dr. Wood. I think it's Robert.
Right.
Let me just look.
Yeah, Patrick Wood. There we go. Dr. Patrick Wood. And this was a really informative overview called Technocracy, the final road, the hard road to world order, a discussion of Technocracy Rising, which I believe is a book from Patrick Wood, and just an amazing amount of territory covered. Very, hard information, not a lot of wild theorizing, but just history, information, and the road that we are going down with 5G and the Internet of Things and technocratic control unless we get together and stop it. So what were your impressions, Nancy, overall of the hour long we just listened to?
Well, when Corbett was on with us, he mentioned the same subject. And so I was like, oh, wow, is this the answer? But Dr. Wood really put it out there that I feel relieved. I now know why these people might be doing this. Before it was like just pure insanity, but now it's insanity that's got a name to it. and a whole philosophy and a whole theory of, I thought it was a brilliant presentation.
Yeah, to me it gives this overview of that same point that keeps coming up for us again and again. And we had it come up with Mark Steele, our good friend who's such a brave activist over in the UK, this question of, okay, what's the real agenda? For Mark, it's about good versus evil, and they essentially want to completely fry the biosphere and us along with it. And that just never worked for me. I needed something that explained more of what I'm seeing in front of me. And this really does it. And the fascinating thing to me towards the end of this conversation, when Patrick was getting into the religion of scientism, science as the new God, and for the technocrat, the idea of the value of the human soul, a spark of the divine, is simply a non-question. Human beings are merely resources to be managed like cattle. Bringing up health questions about the lethal effects of 5G is really, they recognize it more as a local political obstacle to be dealt with than an actual moral fact that requires them to recalibrate their plans, because guess what? It's going to give cancer to children. It's like, well, people die, stuff happens, we've got a bigger plan. They can't come out yet and nakedly say that, but that's the attitude that he was showing us how this came to be, what the mindset is, what the goals are. And this idea of science as a god, that the religion of scientism, positions science as being the ultimate arbiter, the ultimate decision maker, and you'll just simply trust the scientists because they know better, they're smarter, and it's ultimately for the good of all. It always comes back to that. Ultimately for the good of, the Club of Rome, the Trilateral Commission, and the Bilderberg Group. For those people, it always ends up being like Animal Farm. All animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. And ultimately the system is set up to benefit those elites at the cost of humanity. That's the name of the game. That's what we should remember every time we look at a Verizon ad that tells us how wonderfully fast our cell phone's going to be. We can have movies in 3 seconds instead of 3 minutes. Just remember what this is all about. It's really about a data grab to serve technocrats who are ultimately serving the interests of the elite at the expense of humanity. That's what it's always been. It's what it was under Nazism. It's what it was under the Soviet Union. And, that's basically what it comes down to. Even when, like with the Soviets, it's for the collective, you are now part of the great, religion of the masses. Well, ultimately, it ended up benefiting corrupt elite within the Soviet system. So this was, to me, that the key thing that I heard here, that we really need to wake people up to, When you go, okay, well, my regional authority that's done a power grab on the city's local power, regional authority for smart cities has gotten together and decided, hey, we need to put in all this facial recognition technology. We need to let the cops know exactly where crime might occur. And if you're the wrong demographic, the wrong skin color, wearing the wrong outfit at the wrong street corner at the wrong time, you get busted. Well, so you were innocent. Well, we've ruined your life. Well, that's going to happen. Well, our system was set up to protect the innocent. That's what America was supposed to be about. So, it's just this facing the fact that all this is not about the good of the collective. It's about managing the resources, including us as cattle, essentially, for the benefit of a corrupt elite. Corrupt according to our moral standard, according to our understanding of higher law, of the golden rule, of the existence of the divine, of the soul as a reflection of that. We just have to remember that there are two diametrically opposed value systems and views of the universe that are going on here. Anyway, that's my speech. I thought it was a really excellent presentation.
Well, I think it makes clear that we have sociopaths, who do not understand the concept of humanity, that they're lost in their own science, in their own godlike concept of who they are. And it makes so many things really clear to me now, because one of the most astounding and unbelievable, in my opinion, episodes of humanity was when they built the atomic bomb. Now, you've got all these scientists who really don't understand the science. They understand the basics of science. If you do this, you get a bang. But you're working on the edges of quantum physics. You're working within the concept of molecular action that we know what is Newtonian science is not being confirmed by quantum physics. So what you're dealing with is you're going into an area that, especially at that time, World War II, they had no clue as to what they were really getting themselves into, but they're gods. They're scientists. And Oppenheimer himself, they all knew that if they were extremely unlucky, there could be a chain event occurring at the molecular level that would just take everything out. And yet they still declared themselves so powerful that they would risk the entire planet and everybody on it for a scientific venture. Forget about the war and the weapon to save the thing. How dare they? And so what happens? Now we go, 50 years into the future, and what do we have? We have CERN.
Right.
I'm becoming very clear as to who the true enemy is. Mm-hmm. The person that would consider themselves so godlike that they could declare, I'm going to risk the entire existence because I think I'm that powerful, no, you're a fool. And you've been lucky. And you've been lucky because the population of the world, humanity, cannot accept your reality. And so every time you attempt to do these things, you are protected from destroying everything. But guess what, dude and dudess? The people are awakening. They are becoming aware that there is a definite negative, and we don't even want to think of it as evil, but it looks like evil. Well, no, it's not evil. It's egotistical people that think they're gods. Got news for you.
Yeah, that's kind of actually the definition of evil, though, if you get back to it. And if you want to get back to the numerological thing behind 666, right, as the number of the beast, well, 3 is the number of God, 6 is the number of man, and 3 6 is man making himself God. And, in the popular mythology, you go back to the movie The Omen, 666 is the number of the devil. So we are talking evil when you've got exactly what you're describing, which is, a human being making himself or herself God, taking it into, we're going to make humanity 2.0. We're going to take over evolution. We're going to redesign it to our liking. In other words, our values, our management of resources, our soulless view of the universe, which is going to be managed for the benefit of, guess who? Us. That's that. You want to call that evil? I'll call it evil. Use it any way you want.
Let's take a trip back in time. You've got the earth, and on the earth is Adam and Eve. And Adam and Eve are loving spiritual beings that have everything that they live in the Garden of Eden for heaven's sakes. Everything that they could possibly want is there. And all of a sudden, you've got this serpent character, whoever this serpent is representing. And he says to Eve, who's been told by God, both she and Adam, don't eat from the tree of knowledge. And this serpent says, he's trying to trick you. Because if you eat from the tree of knowledge, then you will be like gods. Okay, that's out of the Bible. That's what he supposedly said. So let's just look at this now. What does this mean? It means exactly what is occurring. Is that we've got people out there, because they're knowledgeable about what they think is reality, they are now considering themselves gods, and in fact are gods. With a little calculation off, we could all not be here now anyway. And gods that are so above life and reality that they can make decisions that is theirs to make. The very threat, and it was a threat that the serpent was giving them. If you go with the tree of knowledge, you will be like gods. But I never saw it as that before until now. Is that, yes, if you have enough knowledge to think of yourself as God, then that's where hell lives.
Well, isn't it in the decision, though, that you are going to assume godlike power? I mean, knowledge in and of itself, the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that there's nothing necessarily presumptuously seizing of godlike power simply to become knowledgeable. If you understand, the divine order and divine world and the freedom within it, and you choose to align yourself with that, you choose to live in harmony with the earth and with your fellow beings and become more knowledgeable, well, fine. Christ also said, "Know ye not, it is written in your scripture, you are gods, and to them gave he power to become the sons of God," plural, the sons of God, to as many as believed on him. So, there's a couple of different ways of looking at it, but the point you're making, I agree with, that the people we're talking about made a decision to seize and use scientific knowledge, abrogating unto themselves godlike power to make decisions about humanity without humanity's consent, that are against humanity's interests, and that serve a corrupt elite. And when we're talking about corruption, we're simply talking about, an amoral attitude of service to self over service to others, much less an acknowledgement of the soul, of the divine, and of the soul having a higher destiny than just serving as a unit of measurement in a technocratic system like a goat or,
Well, see, Mark Steele was correct. It is a battle between good and evil.
Yeah.
It's the concept of, if you have the knowledge and you base that knowledge and your ability to deal with knowledge as being, giving you the rights to make decisions that are godlike, okay? That's one path. Now, the other path is the path where you go, well, that's ludicrous. You don't have the right regardless of what you think you know, because every person matters. It goes back to the for self or for others. And the truth of the matter is that if you go for self, there's only one destination, and that's nothingness. If you go with the concept of we're in this together, we're not giving up our individual rights. We're protecting our individual rights because we protect everybody's individual rights. We are the population. Those scientists, they're just fringe. The elite, they're just fringe. But for whatever reasons, we have allowed them to take over.
Right. Well, this is, when you look at it, the idea of, these godlike scientists with all their knowledge. And the reality is that thousands of scientists are signing petitions to say, for God's sake, stop 5G. The elite at the top, have they taken into account the lethal dangers, the biosphere collapse, the insect collapse, the huge chaos that will engulf everyone within the coming years, possibly before the AFC football team wins the next Super Bowl, we could be looking at, and I don't know if you go with the old Wall Street determiner of who wins the Super Bowl. Never mind, that's a tangent. But my point is, within really soon, before the next decade runs out, we could be looking at a catastrophic environmental collapse because of, what you addressed so beautifully in that article we put out a few days ago, the 6th extinction event. It's happening. Are the elite just fine with that, or are they in denial about it? Are they buying their own propaganda? That 5G is going to be fine, and the Internet of Things is going to make life paradise, and not to worry. Meantime, their kids get cancer too. Meantime, their wives have miscarriages too. Meantime, the microorganisms in their soil dies too. The bees collapse in their area too, and there's panic-stricken mobs, storming food stores looking for that last scrap of produce before the farms are simply unable to produce anymore. Do you think they've taken that whole scenario into account with the implementation of the Internet of Things because it's spelling the death of the biosphere?
Okay, this goes back again to what happened in Germany at the end of World War II, because it was obvious months in advance of the Americans actually getting into, or the Russians getting into Berlin, that the Germans had lost the war. And yet the powers that be at that time stated that they would take the entire country down. Adolf Hitler had made a statement very early in the game that, Germany would be saved. It was a saying that Germany would be saved. And I always felt that what saved Germany was obviously the loss of the war. Because of who they were. They were these people that we're dealing with again and again, or still. This mentality. And this mentality at the time of World War II was take the entire country down. So you had massive, massive destruction of cities that never had to have been bombed. You could have just said, "Uncle, give up," right? And protected a good amount of your resources. But no, let's just take it all down with us. If you look at that as being what is happening now, is that they're losing control. It's a desperate effort to either get control or take it all down. And on top of that, you have another thing that was fundamentally could never quite understand this, is the tens of thousands of families, German families, that when they absolutely knew that the war was over and the Fuhrer was gone, they committed suicide, the entire families. murder and suicide.
That's not something you hear a lot about. Yeah.
No, because people can't even, get their heads around it. But that it's historical fact. So and somebody, I think it was Josh that said something about this seeming death wish that they have. It's almost like, if I can't run the program, then I'm going to destroy the game.
Mm.
And for most of us, this is like ludicrous. But everything that they're doing is pretty ludicrous.
Well, the analogy to World War II, as I think about what you're saying, Nancy, starts to resonate even more, because I remember reading about this somewhere, that what you're describing, these suicides of German families, a lot of these people knew very well what the Nazi army, what the Wehrmacht had done to the Russians. And they knew the Russians were coming. And the idea of facing the retribution of the Red Army for the horrors that were perpetrated upon the Russian people by the Nazis, rather than, see the husband have his throat cut, and the wives and daughters raped and the homes burned, let's just, go out with something like what we think of as pride and honor as, the master race. When you look at what's happening today,
let me just interrupt you there, because in fact the Americans the war was over. They were not afraid of the Russians. That's a story they tell.
Oh, really?
The vast majority of them, if you look at the timetable, was after the war. In other words, it was when Germany lost, not because the Russians were coming or anything like that. That's part of it. That's what they told us was the truth. That's why they did it. But I'm telling you that it was a tremendous number that did it when there was no danger from that. Just a
wow, that's
point,
startling.
Yeah.
Well, it goes even more to my point, to a certain extent, which is that, as humanity wakes up, who knows what the fallout of the Epstein thing is going to be, but as the elite pedophilia rings are exposed, as these satanic sex rituals and the torture and murder of children are exposed, as the agenda is made naked and exposed to everyone on a level that no amount of denial or talking about fake news is going to make it go away. This is what's been happening. Red, blue, left, right, Democrat, Republican, UK, the elite. Certain factions of the elite. Obviously there's a lot of different factions. It's a complex geopolitical picture. I don't believe there's a single monolithic structure of the so-called Illuminati, but the reality of what you're describing, the scientistic religion, which is essentially Satanistic if you bring it down to what we're talking about in terms of service to self or service to others, once that's exposed, the jig is going to be up, so badly up for these people, that the consequences, you can look at it and say, yeah, given a choice, they're going, okay, we're going to make a last desperate gamble here. We're going to impose 5G too soon. It's really too soon, but we have to do it now because they're waking up too fast. And once the jig is up and we're exposed, torches and pitchforks is like the mild version of what could happen to a lot of these people. Once humanity sees the enormity of these crimes. So, yeah, I get your point. They're going, okay, well, yeah, maybe 5G takes down most of the biosphere, insect collapse, bee colony collapse, microorganism collapse, chaos, but we'll still be on top, either that or, we'll retreat to our deep underground military bases. Yeah, there's something definitely suicidal about it.
Well, the other thing is that most people, I would say most people in the world, I'm not talking even the United States, the world, would not be happy living in a desert with no nature, a world of desert. They wouldn't be happy living on the moon in little containers. Yeah. But these people they're quite content because their universe is them. They don't.
Well, I don't know. They're still human beings. I mean, no, they seem pretty.
I'm not going to say they're human beings. They're humans. A human being is somebody that has empathy and compassion and love. I'm not going to continue to accept these people as being part of our family. They're outsiders. Let's treat them as outsiders. They're dangerous outsiders.
Okay, I hear you. And once we start to decide who's human and who's not, we're just like the Nazis. You know, that's what they abrogated unto themselves, the power to say, the Jews aren't really humans. You don't need to feel empathy and compassion. We're just implementing the final solution to the problem they pose because they're not really human. Once we get into deciding who decides it, oh, you were a technocrat, oh, you were part of Agenda 21, oh, you served in this office or that office, or you're a relative of this scientist.
I don't care about any of that, Michael. All I care about is that we begin to realize that these people are outside. They're not like us. You know, we've got to realize that there are some people that just are different. I'm not saying, for one thing, okay, my reality is what I think it is, and those people I don't want in my reality. I don't want to hurt them. I don't want to burn them. I don't want to put them in. I just want them to stop and go away. And if we can simply think in terms of metaphysical concepts and energy and stop thinking about these beings as being the dictators of reality. They're trying to dictate their reality. I'm saying let's us dictate ours, which is to see them as being unempowered. They have no power anymore. They're not fooling anybody anymore. If we keep doing this and thinking in this way, if we listen to people like Dr. Wood that can give you the historical way that this developed, you know, and again, if you look at any one of these things, why do these secret societies, why do these philosophical, why do these religions work? It's because they were brought up by parents that taught them that. And so they think that that's reality. And I'm saying, no. There's another reality. It's just that we have not been vocal about it.
Okay.
You know, and I've said this before. I think I said it in that article. You know, we have to have a different type of political party, the Naturalist Party, a party that realizes that we are in this together. You know, the biosphere is, you know, spaceship Earth Party. We are on a globe. Yes, it's not flat. A globe, a sphere, traveling at thousands and thousands of miles a second through the universe. And the only thing protecting us is a thin layer of atmosphere. There's no metal here. There's no metal here. This is an amazing, you know, God thought about this. God made this. Gaia or Source God or whoever designed. I mean, these vehicles, these spaceships with human beings all on them, all playing a different game. All seeing a different reality. But it's damn stupid when you destroy the spaceship. And that's what they're doing.
Yeah. Okay, so what I'm hearing you say, I'm coming around to understanding where you're coming from on this, is that, and on one level, when you're talking about they're not like us, it's about understanding the nature of your enemy. You know, that is, and I know lots of people in my community say, oh, you're saying enemy, you're using the language of warfare and conflict. Well, yeah. I mean, they're trying to kill us. We're trying to save our families. So, yeah, we're going to go with that.
Well, let's just say they're not trying to kill us. They don't care if they kill us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Know,
it's just, which
collateral
is maybe
damage.
Even worse. Right, which is maybe even worse, because in war, there's supposedly an objective. We want your territory. We're going to make incursions and invasions, and then we're going to sign a peace treaty, and, you know, we'll have your territory and we'll occupy you. That's not what's going on here. This is about ultimate control of humanity.
They probably kick dogs.
Well, they probably do, but, you know, you get down to it, okay, some technocrat, who might also be a jazz fan, who might also, love to go to the baseball game, might like that, stuff that we think of as, oh yeah, that's a recognizable fellow American human being, but he happens to believe that we are soulless. He happens to be working for, an organization that is implementing an immoral agenda of control in which we are just so many, units of resource to be measured, controlled, and if 5G kills us, that's okay. It's a tricky thing. I mean, we have to identify the attitudes and the actions that constitute these crimes and not get into, it's really tempting, that they kick dogs. Well, you like the movie Men Who Stare at Ghosts. This is Men Who Kick at Dogs. These are our enemies. Yeah.
It's not even an enemy. It's like somebody who wants a different reality than we do. And we're all on this spaceship, okay? If you want that reality, then why don't you go, maybe there's an asteroid out there you can screw around with. But this biosphere, Gaia's home plate here, no, you're not part of it. You can't be here. We don't need you anymore. We're stepping up. We're taking responsibility. We don't need you anymore. Please go away. And the way we do that is to stop thinking of them as controlling everything. They are controlling nothing, and that's what they're realizing. Because they can't control me, they can't control you, they can't control the people that are listening to us. Our minds are already free. And all over the world, because we've been doing this, feeding that collective consciousness, people are just realizing it. What's a chemtrail? What do you mean about? They're waking up. And the thing of it is that we can't keep telling them there's these terrible people that are in control. No, there are terrible people that want to be in control, that were in control, but they're not in control anymore. This is what we're all about. We're coming together and just negate them. Just don't go away. Don't put your energy into them, but understand them, that they're in an insane, throes of death because they're the type that have to control. That's why I'm saying they're not like us. Who in their right mind wants to control? It's a lot of work. These people.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've met a few people in my life. I think we all have.
And I'm the first one to say that the reason that we've already won is because the people that were working in those organizations, they're also waking up. They're also being aware. I mean, the man that just came out, the second one that just came out from Google, explaining how Google is going to try, has already done, and he's got the paperwork with him. He took the paperwork with him, that they are trying to take over the republic by controlling the way that people think. When you Google Trump, you're going to come up with all of this negative stuff, and if you Google Nancy Hopkins, you won't even see her.
Right. Somebody told me that when the Epstein thing rolled out and everybody's Googling Epstein, if you Googled in the Google image search under the search term Epstein Clinton, you got a picture of Epstein with Trump.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's what Google serves up if you're trying to find out about the Epstein connection to the Clintons, which is massive. Bill Clinton took that plane to that pedophile island multiple times. That connection is deeply documented. Well, what does Google give you? It tries to, make Epstein all about Donald Trump.
And for the record, Donald Trump did interface with Epstein, but he was never on one of those planes. He was never on that island. And in fact, he was one of the few people that took action to stop something that Epstein was doing in South Florida. So, there is no connection between Trump and Epstein. Sorry.
Yeah, but, Stephen Colbert will, go on late night talk show and, his monologue is going to be all about Trump and Epstein, nothing about Bill Clinton being on that plane multiple times.
Exactly.
So, it's talking points. Somebody issues the talking points to his writing staff, and they go with it. They don't even have to be issued talking points. That's their groove. That's what's getting their ratings up.
And the Epstein thing actually works, because if you've ever seen a botched murder-suicide or suicide-murder, well, that was it. Boy, a lot of people are waking up over that one. It's like, they've seen too much, CSI. They know too much about forensics. I mean, I can only imagine. I mean, I had this reaction when the autopsy results, and they said they needed more information. It was like, everybody knows the best evidence is the body. You're supposed to say how that body died. What other information would you need?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that one was just like, that jumped out at me. And I when it happened, I went, oh, gonna wake a lot of people up with that statement.
We need to be told what the official story is going to be so that we can tailor the coroner's report to match it. It's kind of what it sounds like.
So that I don't know if he's dead or alive, who killed him, who murdered him, who's committed suicide. I mean, but it is such a botched situation from every angle. And this high profile guy that, should have been, treated like gold, is treated like a piece of trash. I mean, I think a lot of Americans are having their head spins over this. And this is the type, unfortunately, this is the type of thing that people gossip about.
Mm-hmm. Water cooler conversation or hair salon conversation.
Every time these people make a move, it's like it just works against them.
Yeah, it's another clever controlling move that backfires, like, half a dozen we could name off the top of our heads. Which is why, again, this idea of these great controllers. You mean these great idiots, who keep screwing up, who keep making moves that are ultimately going to backfire on them?
It's because we're waking up. We're putting the energy out there. There's this, I was looking at the radio station on, earlier, the chat room, and I started putting in, listening to the channels on my phone, but it never changes the chat. So people that are listening on the phone, we don't know how many people are really listening. And, so I think that even if I had those statistics, there's probably even more people listening that I don't know about. That people are listening, not just to us, but to everybody. And it's all coming. It's the more people that come on, the more it unravels.
Yeah, and the quality of the conversation that we're able to have here, the material we're able to bring forward, and just given your background, given my background, people recognize there's enough substance going on in this conversation, enough, hard information, enough insight that comes from, some historical background where it's finding its way into the conversation. And there are ripples, across space-time, across our little globe here, where, we're a reflection of the collective consciousness. And it's, the ripples are getting bigger and bigger, and they keep rolling and rolling on. And it really helps me to have this conversation with you and be reminded of this, because it's just so easy. You hear this interview we just listened to with Patrick Wood about the technocrats and the Internet of Things, and the federal government totally behind the rollout of 5G and all these trillions of dollars being spent. It's very easy to think like, oh, geez, we can't fight this. This is a done deal. We're sunk. And the opposite is true. It's very valuable, the information Patrick Wood was bringing forward, especially at the end when he's talking about San Francisco, the most liberal city in the country, just voted to ban facial recognition technology, which is an essential aspect of their surveillance rollout that the technocrats want. Think about that, folks. It is happening. But I loved this line. He said that a friend of his, maybe it was Josh Del Sol who said this, about the alarming information they're bringing out to wake people up. It said, "We scare because we care." Okay. Yeah, it's a little scary, but mostly it's about hope when you look at something like what happened in San Francisco.
Well, I think maybe you might have blanked out a little bit because he did give the keys. He said they can't deal with the cities. Right. That's why they're going to this regional concept, because and that's what I've been telling people. It's a system. And you have to work at the local level. If you just stop your local area from bringing it in, then they can't build the system. It gets more expensive. They could always do it. But that's why they're so desperate for this regional thing. Okay? So it's a matter of city by city, county by county. Don't worry about the state. Don't worry about the feds. This is a local battle. This is your neighborhood that's under attack. And you have to stand up and say no. And, the beauty of it is that in a city, okay, right now, I personally know one of the council people on the city, my local city, okay? But my next door neighbor knows every one of them, and has conversations with virtually every one of them, because that's what she looks at. She's not part of the government. She's just active in it. And for every one government official at the local level, there's somebody out there who can hear our message, who is a friend, or at least somebody that can go and say, look, I got to tell you this. So there's a much more power of influence the lower you get in the government structure. And all you have to do is protect your own city.
Right. Yeah, I actually was tuning in for that part, and I love that line that said about, encouraging people, get on your city council, get on your local boards. With the line he said, if you don't have a seat at the table, you are what's for dinner.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, it's so true. It's such a clear way of putting it. That is really what it is. And we saw it in Taos. There were everybody in the room, 300 people who showed up to protest, 1,000 people who signed a petition, and you got 6 county commissioner members up there deciding about changes to land use regulations. It's going to open a back door for a streamlined approval process for 5G. And their own director of planning admitted on sworn testimony that that's exactly what it was about, a response to an influx of requests for 5G approval. And, well, guess what? If it had taken place a year from now, when that outrage is channeled into election results, it's a different makeup of that council. It's not 4 votes against 2 to give a little bit of time to research the dangers of 5G. No, it's going to be, the other way around. And Taos would be protected instead of being vulnerable like it is today.
And we've got to look at what we're talking about here, because right now, don't 5G coming to my neighborhood. Think 5G is coming to your neighborhood, and get active now. Go out and find these people. And if you're you're trying to talk to these people and you're getting this, yeah, right, attitude, then go find the person that wants to run against them.
Yep.
Okay? And talk to them. And say to them, look, this is where the fight is going to be. Do you want to be a bit winner or a loser? Because remember, you're talking to politicians, okay, even at the local level. Give them an excuse. Find the person who needs an excuse to get on board with the, sanity versus humanity.
Yeah, it reminds me, this may be a little off topic, but it's a great story from the movie Charlie Wilson's War. Did you ever see that with Tom Hanks and Julia Roberts? About the guy who, it's this politician who went to Washington and he helped line up all the money that basically saved Afghanistan from the Soviets back in the 80s. And he's talking about when he fell in love with politics. He's in a small Texas town, and there was this city council guy who lived across the street from him. And Charlie Wilson had a dog whom he loved. And this dog would bark, and the city council guy didn't like it. Sheriff. No, he was a sheriff. He didn't like it. And one day he fed the dog a piece of meat with ground glass in it. And Charlie Wilson, 14-year-old kid, had to watch his dog, writhing in agony, die on his front lawn. And he said to himself, I'm going to get this guy. So it just so happened there was an election. And Charlie Wilson got a driver's license, and he went around and he drove all kinds of poor folks to the polls in that little town. And as he drove them to the polling place, he said, you know, this sheriff, he killed my dog with ground glass. And that sheriff lost by 3 votes. And Charlie Wilson said, that's when I fell in love with democracy. Anyway, that's what we got to do. You know, we've got to get in there and talk to our neighbors and let them understand what's going on and what the stakes are. And, you know, drive them to the polls if you need to. If you rather not have a 5G antenna spraying carcinogenic waves at your family.
Or run yourself.
Oh, yeah, or run yourself, exactly.
Because
even better.
Because the thing of it is that some people, I mean, we had this one person on Facebook say that they were going to have an anti-5G thing at some local place, I don't even know where, and she wanted to know, could somebody who's a leader in 5G come and talk? And I'm going like, you're the leaders. We know there's not enough people with presence on the like you and I or Mark or any of these other activists to go to every single group. You are the leaders. This is one of the beauties of this, is that it's you. Right, exactly. Now we can help. You and I are helping right now here on Radio 5G, right? I've just had a request from a town on the Western Slope here in Colorado, to come and give a presentation. So that they can all start to wake up to what's going on. Hey, that's what I'm here for. If we can film it, get it online, then it helps wake up that many more people. Maybe we feature it on Radio 5G. And with the message, okay, you're the leaders. Now, we help spread information. We're good at that. But you're the leaders. You know, that's how we're going to turn this thing around. And we're going to turn it around. In my opinion, we already have turned it around because it's another desperate move in Phoenix. You know, if you know anybody in Phoenix, even if you don't know anybody in Phoenix, find out if there's 5G activism going on. Wake the people up. You know, randomly call somebody and say, do you know you're under attack by 5G? I mean, I know you shouldn't do that, but you gotta participate if it's just to talk. Because I'm telling you, I've been talking about this for 45 years, and people would just get that glazed look and out of there. Now, I wear a baseball cap, and by the way, you can get these baseball caps. Go to cosmicreality.net, and I asked somebody that knows stuff, because I never buy anything. I said, is this hat worth the money? And she said, oh yeah. She said, that's a really good price for that hat. So you're getting value. We're not making any money. We're just, we can't afford to just give these away. I mean, wish we could. And the cards, the little cards that when they see that baseball cap and it says beware 5G, and they go, you just see them looking at you, just hand them a card and walk on. Because that's what we've got to do. We've got to spread the information. The information is on our side. It's just spread the information. And every one of us is responsible for doing that one little thing, even if it's to your family. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it amazes me to see mainstream media doubling down on the denial. I mean, what's left of the New York Times reputation, the shreds of its reputation as, the newspaper of record, as they used to be called. That's got, here comes another editorial from the New York Times, the non-existent danger of 5G, right? And I'm just going, wow, okay. And as usual, it's a fact-free article. And people are starting to wake up to the fact that the board of directors of the New York Times is made up of former telecom executives. So, that is kind of refreshing to see that people are just, the propaganda is becoming so naked, so obvious. It's like the Epstein thing, okay, we're seeing the controller, the wizard behind the curtain going, pay no attention to that man.
behind the curtain. Well, he's pretty naked now, and this is where it's at. Programs like this, people like Josh Still Soul. We should probably give another plug here as we're coming to the end for the 5G Crisis Summit. That's the right URL, right, Nancy? The 5G Crisis Summit?
Yes, .com.
.com, yeah. Just some amazing speakers. They've got Robert F. Kennedy Jr. lined up. They've got Dr. Deborah Green, who was with us last week, going to give an excellent presentation.
Before we get through I want to just point something out. Last week when Dr. Green was here, you and she got into a conversation of the Internet of Things. And I went and I did a little bit more research into the Internet of Things. So I want to present some of the information that I've uncovered in a very short period of time, because what the gamble here is that they're going to take over complete control over the entire population. And for that, it reminds me of Manhattan being sold because of beads, trinkets by the Native Americans.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And for this, you're going to get the Internet of Things. So you hear it in Internet of Things. Well, let me tell you what the Internet of Things are, okay? The first thing that, you got your refrigerators, and they can look at your electronics. They can already read all the electrical in your house anyway. But the real things that you're going to get is the Lumi by Pampers. Okay, which Pampers says has a wait list ahead of its U.S. launch this coming fall. Includes an active sensor that secures to a landing on the front of a baby's diaper. It comes with a baby monitor and a 10-day supply of diapers. The sensor works with corresponding apps to log the kid's pee and identify patterns. Okay, now that's that one. All right, now let's look at Pacify, which is a pacifier. Okay. It can take the baby's temperature. All right. So it's monitoring the baby's temperature and sending it to your phone, what the baby's temperature is. Therefore, you don't even have to touch your child to see if they've gotten warm. All right. You got it in your phone. It also acts as a proximity monitor, sending a notification to the paired smartphone if your child tries to escape. Now, how many kids try to escape with a pacifier in the mouth? Okay. If the pacifier moves out of a 30-meter range, the Pacify app will make a note of it, the last known location, using your phone's GPS, pointing you in the direction of your lost child, or hopefully just a lost pacifier. And if you do misplace the thing, you can trigger a miniature siren that's built into it to help track it down. Okay?
Wow.
All right.
Never mind that the baby monitor is giving your kid brain cancer in the meantime. That's a separate issue.
Now it's in its mouth, too. In its diapers and in its mouth. So, they'll get this kid real soon.
Yeah, and it's obviously... Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, smart mattresses. They're like your memory foam mattress, only a whole lot smarter. They track your sleep stats like a health tracker, adjust according to your position, preferences, and some even connect to a smart home device so you can do cool automation like starting your coffee brewer right after you wake up. There's smart toothbrushes that tell you how long and what okay. It has a sensor in the head of the toothbrush that sends information on your brushing habits to an interactive app on your smartphone, normally by Bluetooth. All right, now the one that is really baffling is this. Remember, she said we had the conversation about a condom. And we thought maybe if it broke, that this would be what they... No, get this, okay? This is an actual device right now, okay? A British company unveils a ring for the penis that can measure calories burned as well as thrusts and duration.
Good Lord.
Okay? Now, they're calling it a Fitbit for the penis. Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. Now, they also have the tampon monitor. Now, this one is really good, Michael. You're going to like this. It's called the MyFlow tampon monitor. It consists of a long tail that connects to a monitor by means of a medical-grade conductive thread. The monitor can be clipped to a waistband or underwear and connects to a smartphone or other Bluetooth-enabled device. The monitor can also function as a keychain. Okay, but the one that got it is so terrifying. It's just unbelievable. It's called Parturient Pod. Is an artificial and intelligent internet-connected incubator that could live in your family's room. It has a clear curved lid so that eager parents can obsess over every stage of the fetus's growth. To mimic the intimacy of carrying your own baby, there's a portable care bag that slings over your shoulder and simulates the baby's kicks. Likewise, the parents gently rock the portable bag. The connected pod simulates the same movement to enhance the bonding experience.
Oh, you're talking about an incubator outside the womb?
Yes, instead of the woman carrying the child for 9 months, you put it in this pod and you watch it grow. And I think that they also have the ability you can talk to it. I think there's a little microphone associated with it.
Right. So if you want, like all these things that you're mentioning, I mean, the horror of it, it feels like a joke, but it's happening, people. These devices are being made. And like, the crisis level problems that these are solving. I might, because man, if I don't know how soon my toothbrush is going to wear out, I'm going to be in a panic all day long. And so I need to risk the health of my children. I need to risk, a brain tumor. I need to risk the loss of sovereignty so that I can know from the wonderful Internet of Things when my toothbrush is going to wear out. And this incubator thing, I'm giving away my age here, but there was a song back in the early 70s, in the year 2525, pick your sons, pick your daughters too, from the bottom of a long black tube. Whoa. It's here. And, but it's, as Nancy was pointing out to us, we actually have turned it around. We are turning it around, but we need to know that this is what's not just on the horizon. It's being rolled out. So we're coming up here at the end of our time, and we want to give a shout out to Josh Del Sol, TakeBackYourPower.net for the 5G Crisis Summit. And again, that's at the5gcrisissummit.com. Some 30 amazing speakers giving out really solid information about what 5G is, how it can be stopped, what the agenda is. Mostly it's about hope. That's what we're about here at Radio 5G. And Radio 5G, of course, is a joint project of CosmicReality.net and the Sacred Academy of Global Evolution in Crestone, Colorado. So, Nancy, any final thoughts you want to take us out on here before we listen to Mr. McCartney?
We are the power. We have the power.
Man, I remember saying, yeah, that's it. You've got the power. You've got the power. You've got the power. That's a
you got it, boy. You got the power. I'm
Good old
telling
Jesse.
you.
All right. God bless everybody. We'll see you next time.